Welcome back to the investigation. In the first part, we exposed the secrets buried in the soil. Now we are going deeper. From the bottom of the Baltic Sea to the freezing tundra of Russia, the anomalies are getting stranger. Water is the greatest museum curator in the world. It doesn't discriminate, it doesn't judge. It simply takes things and holds them. The Baltic Sea is unique. It is cold, it is dark, and it is low in oxygen. This specific chemical cocktail means that wood-eating shipworms, the scourge of shipwrecks in the Caribbean or the Mediterranean, cannot survive here. Ships that sink in the Baltic don't disappear, they just wait. In 2020, engineers were surveying the seabed near the Fehmarn Belt. They weren't looking for history, they were looking for the future. They were mapping the route for a massive underwater tunnel that will eventually link Germany and Denmark. The sonar pinged something massive. It was a ship, but not just a merchant vessel or a fishing boat. This was a leviathan of the 17th century. It was the Delmanhost, a Danish warship that vanished from the surface world in 1644. To understand this wreck, we have to understand the chaos of the year 1644. This was the era of the Torstenson War, a brutal conflict where the Swedish Empire and the Dutch Republic were hammering the Kingdom of Denmark-Norway for control of the seas. The Battle of Fehmarn was a disaster for the Danes, and the Delmanhost was at the center of the carnage. Historical accounts from the time were dramatic, perhaps too dramatic. They claimed that the Swedes, desperate to break the Danish line, used one of the most terrifying tactics in naval warfare: the fire ship. They took one of their own vessels, likely the Håkland, set it ablaze, and steered it directly into the Danish fleet. For centuries, this was just a story in a dusty ledger. War propaganda, exaggeration. But the wreck tells the truth. When divers and ROVs, remotely operated vehicles, inspected the remains of the Delmanhost, they found physical proof of that nightmare. The cannons, massive bronze and iron guns, showed signs of severe heat damage. Metal doesn't blister like that from seawater. It blisters from an inferno. The archaeological forensics confirm the old war stories. The Delmanhost didn't just sink, it burned down to the waterline before the waves took it. The metallurgical damage aligns perfectly with prolonged exposure to extreme fire. It is a haunting scene to visualize. The cold, black water of the Baltic preserving the scars of a white-hot fire. Had the tunnel construction progressed without this survey, the site might have been drilled through or buried under sediment, suffering irreversible damage. Instead, the ship rests documented and protected. It is a time capsule of naval tactics, preserving the moment when wood, canvas, and gunpowder met their violent end beneath one of Europe's busiest maritime corridors. Nature has rules. One of the primary rules of survival is, don't bite off more than you can chew. But 240 million years ago, in the warm, shallow seas of what is now southern China, a predator broke that rule, and it paid the ultimate price. Paleontologists were excavating a limestone quarry in the Guizhou province. This region is famous for its marine fossils. It was once a thriving ocean ecosystem, teeming with reptiles that had returned to the sea. They found a skeleton. The animal was a Guizhou ichthyosaurus. It was a marine reptile, roughly 15 feet long, shaped like a modern dolphin, but far more reptilian. Ichthyosaurs were the kings of the Triassic seas. They were fast, streamlined, and efficient. Usually, when we look at ichthyosaur teeth, we see tools designed for grasping small, slippery prey like squid or small fish. Their teeth are blunt, not serrated like a shark or a T-Rex. They are designed to grip, not to shear. Because of this, scientists assumed ichthyosaurs were specialized hunters of small game. But this specific fossil had a lump in its stomach. When researchers looked closer at the abdominal area, they realized the lump was another skeleton. And it wasn't a fish. It was a thalattosaur, a lizard-like marine reptile. And it was huge. The prey inside the stomach measured nearly 12 feet long. The predator was only 15 feet long. Do the math. This ichthyosaur swallowed an animal that was nearly as long as its own body. This discovery shattered our understanding of marine reptile behavior. It offered direct evidence of mega-predation, hunting prey of similar size to the hunter. It suggests a level of aggression and risk-taking behavior that we never attributed to these animals. But there is a twist. This wasn't a successful hunt. The fossil preserves a murder-suicide. The prey was found with its limbs still attached, its tail intact. It hadn't been digested. The prevailing theory is that the ichthyosaur attacked, killed, and swallowed the thalattosaur, but the prey was simply too big. It likely ruptured the predator's internal organs or blocked its ability to breathe. The ichthyosaur died with a full stomach. It sank to the bottom, and the sediment covered them both. Fossilized consequence. The stone preserved the moment with brutal clarity, freezing instinct, miscalculation, and outcome together. It is a monument to evolutionary ambition, a reminder that in the ancient ocean, being the apex predator didn't make you invincible. Sometimes it just made you greedy. Speed comes at a price. In the modern world, we are obsessed with connectivity. We want to get from London to Birmingham in 49 minutes. We want high-speed 2, HS2. This is one of the largest infrastructure projects in European history. A ribbon of steel and concrete slicing through the heart of England. But before you can lay the track for the future, you have to deal with the past that is in the way. Under UK law, you cannot simply bulldoze history. You have to record it first. This legal requirement transformed a transportation project into the largest archaeological operation ever undertaken in the British Isles. Over 1,000 archaeologists descended on the route. They peeled back the topsoil of England like a carpet, revealing a cross-section of humanity spanning 10,000 years. Usually, archaeology happens in small squares, a 2-meter by 2-meter trench. But HS2 is a corridor. It offered a unique opportunity to see the landscape as a whole, to see how settlements connected, how roads moved, how people lived across miles of territory. The discoveries were relentless. In London, near Euston Station, they had to exhume St. James's Gardens. This was a burial ground used in the 18th and 19th centuries. Over 40,000 bodies had to be carefully removed. Among them, they found Captain Matthew Flinders, the man who named Australia. He had been lost for centuries, buried under a train station, his final resting place identified only by a lead breastplate found in the mud. Further north, in the Midlands, the discoveries went deeper. They found Anglo-Saxon treasure hoards. They found Roman settlements with traces of roads that mirrored the modern ones. They found an Iron Age murder victim, a skeleton buried face down with hands bound, a 2,000-year-old crime scene. They uncovered the War of the Roses battlefields, finding cannonballs and livery badges dropped by soldiers fighting for the Crown of England. They even found evidence of hunter-gatherers from the Mesolithic period, flints scattered by people who walked this land before it was an island, when Britain was still connected to Europe. The irony is palpable. We are building the fastest train in history, but to do it, we had to slow down and meticulously brush away the dirt of centuries. The HS2 project proves that the ground beneath our feet is crowded. Every field, every hill, every city block is built on top of bones. The modern speed we desire depends entirely on the careful patience below ground. Every meter of that track was surveyed, catalogued, and cleared. It reminds us that we are just the latest tenants. The land does not belong to us. We are simply occupying the top layer of a very deep cave. We are taught a very specific timeline in school. It goes like this. Step 1, humans discover agriculture, farming. Step 2, humans settle down in villages to tend the crops. Step 3, once they have surplus food, they organize religion and build temples. Farming first, civilization second, temples last. That was the rule. It was the bedrock of our understanding of human history. And then, in 1994, a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt climbed a hill called Göbekli Tepe. And he broke the rule. What he found there shouldn't exist. 10,000 years before Stonehenge. 7,000 years before the Great Pyramid of Giza. At the very end of the last ice age, when humans were supposedly wandering bands of hunter-gatherers living in small tribes, someone built a cathedral on a hill. Göbekli Tepe consists of massive circular enclosures. Inside these circles stand giant T-shaped limestone pillars. Some of them are 18 feet tall and weigh up to 16 tons. Let's think about the logistics. 16 tons. There were no wheels. There were no beasts of burden, no oxen, no horses. There were no metal tools. These pillars were carved with flint and obsidian. They were moved by human muscle and sheer will. And the carvings? They are terrifyingly beautiful. Lions, foxes, vultures, scorpions, spiders. They are not crude stick figures. They are high-relief sculptures projecting out of the stone. The scale of the site defies the timeline. Hunter-gatherers were not supposed to have the social organization to do this. You need hundreds of workers to move a 16-ton pillar. You need to feed them. You need to direct them. Göbekli Tepe suggests that the temple came first. The theory is now inverted. Perhaps it wasn't farming that led to cities. Perhaps it was the desire to worship that forced people to come together. To build this site, they had to stay in one place. To feed the workers, they had to invent farming. Religion didn't follow civilization. Religion created civilization. But the mystery gets deeper. Around 8000 BC, the site wasn't just abandoned. It was buried. The people who built it spent immense effort to fill the circles with rubble, dirt, and refuse. They didn't just walk away, they decommissioned it, they sealed it. This wasn't abandonment, it was closure. Why? Did the religion change? Did the site become taboo? We don't know. But by burying it, they inadvertently preserved it perfectly for us. Göbekli Tepe is the 0 point of history. It is where the modern human soul began to manifest in stone. It stands as a silent rebuke to our arrogance, proving that our ancestors were more organized, more artistic, and more complex than we ever gave them credit for. Welcome back. We've seen the fires of naval warfare and the gluttony of prehistoric monsters. But now, we move to the mysteries that challenge what we know about human nature itself. There is a line where geology ends and archaeology begins. Usually, that line is clear. A brick is not a rock. A statue is not a boulder. But sometimes the line blurs. In 1987, a local diver named Kihachiro Aratake was exploring the waters off Yonaguni Island, the westernmost point of Japan. He was looking for hammerhead sharks. Instead, he found a city, or at least, he found something that looked like one. Rising from the seabed, roughly 25 meters down, is a massive sandstone formation. It is monolithic, it is imposing, and it is incredibly strange. The structures, known as the Yonaguni Monument, look like a giant's playground. There are flat terraces with sharp edges. There are vertical walls that drop at 90-degree angles. There are formations that look like staircases leading to nowhere, and pillars that seem to support roofs that have long since washed away. There is even a structure that divers call the Loop Road, a wide, flat pathway that encircles the base of the monument. When Aratake surfaced, he knew he had found something impossible. If this was a city, it was massive. If it was a city, it had to be built when this land was above water. And that is where the timeline breaks. The last time this area was dry land was during the last ice age, roughly 10,000 to 12,000 years ago. If humans built this, they did it thousands of years before the first pyramids of Egypt. They did it before the concept of civilization supposedly existed in this region. This discovery sparked one of the fiercest debates in modern science. On one side, you have the believers, led by marine geologist Masaki Kimura. He argues that the symmetry is too perfect to be natural. He points to tool marks on the stone and the existence of what looks like a carved face, a massive, sphinx-like structure staring into the deep. He believes this is the remains of a lost Pacific civilization, perhaps the legendary Mu, or a culture erased by the rising tides of the meltwater pulse. On the other side, you have the skeptics. Geologists like Robert Schoch argue that nature is a trickster. Yonaguni is made of sandstone and shale, rocks that naturally fracture along straight plains. In a high-energy environment like this, prone to earthquakes and strong currents, the rock can shear off in clean, straight lines that mimic architecture. They call it terraced geology. They argue that the stairs are just natural erosion, and the roads are just fault lines. So, which is it? Is it a masterpiece of ancient engineering, lost to the rising sea? Or is it a geological hallucination? A Rorschach test, where we see castles because we want to see castles? The truth might be somewhere in the middle. Perhaps it is a natural formation that was recognized by ancient people. Perhaps they used it, modified it, or worshipped it. Terraforming rather than building, Yonaguni sits in that uncomfortable territory between certainty and mystery. It refuses to answer our questions. Whether shaped by hands or by the tectonic violence of the earth, the formations challenge our need for categorization. Sometimes, discovery doesn't answer questions. It creates better ones. We often think of Ice Age humans as desperate. We imagine them huddled in caves, wrapped in rough furs, thinking only of the next meal. Living lives that were, in the words of Hobbes, nasty, brutish, and short. We assume they had no time for art, no time for beauty, no time for grief. But beneath the frozen soil of Sungir, that assumption falls apart. In 1955, excavators near the city of Vladimir hit something that shouldn't have been there. They found a burial site. But this wasn't a shallow grave for a fallen hunter. This was a royal tomb in the middle of the tundra. Archaeologists uncovered the skeletons of two children, aged roughly 10 and 13. They were laid head to head in a long, narrow grave. But it was what they were wearing that silenced the researchers. The soil around their bones was thick with ivory. They were covered in beads, not a few dozen, not a few hundred. Over 10,000 individual beads, each one painstakingly carved from the tusk of a woolly mammoth. Let's look at the labor involved. Experimental archaeology has shown that it takes about an hour to carve a single ivory bead using stone tools. 10,000 beads means 10,000 hours of labor. That is over a year of non-stop work, 24 hours a day, for one person. Or more likely, the dedicated work of an entire tribe for months. Why would a survivalist culture, living on the edge of a frozen world, invest that much energy into dead children? The beads were once sewn onto clothing, caps, shirts, trousers, and boots. These children were dressed in outfits that would have shimmered white against the dark fur. They looked like spirits. Alongside them lay spears made of straightened mammoth tusk, a technology that required boiling and bending solid ivory, a technique we still don't fully understand. There were ivory discs carved with geometric patterns. This discovery rewrote the book on the Upper Paleolithic. It proves that 34,000 years ago, complex social hierarchy already existed. These children could not have earned this status. They didn't hunt the mammoths. They didn't lead the tribe. They were born into importance. They were the princes of the Ice Age. The Sungir burials show us that human nature hasn't changed. Even in the harshest conditions imaginable, we are creatures of symbol and ritual. We love our children, and we mourn them with everything we have. These people were not simple cavemen. They were artisans, tailors, and chemists of the natural world. They looked at the death of a child and responded with an outpouring of beauty that has outlasted the glaciers themselves. Egypt is famous for its obsession with the afterlife. We know about the pharaohs, we know about the gold masks, but there was another industry in ancient Egypt, one that operated on an industrial scale that rivals modern manufacturing: the production of animal mummies. To please the gods, you needed a messenger, and who better to carry a message to the sky than a bird? Millions, literally millions, of mummified birds have been found in the catacombs of Egypt. Ibises for Thoth, falcons for Horus. They are stacked like firewood in underground tunnels, floor to ceiling, room after room. For decades, Egyptologists asked a logistical question: where did they get all the birds? The prevailing theory was simple: factory farming. Historians assumed the priests ran massive hatcheries, breeding these birds by the millions just to kill them, dip them in resin, and sell them to pilgrims. It made sense. It was efficient. It was organized. But in 2020, a team of French researchers decided to test that theory. They took the mummies to the lab. They used high-resolution X-ray imaging and chemical analysis to look inside the wrappings without destroying them. They expected to find uniformity. If you farm animals, you harvest them at a specific age, usually when they are fully grown, but young. That's not what they found. The scans revealed chaos. Inside the beautifully wrapped bundles were birds of every possible description. There were nestlings, there were adults. There were old battered birds with healed fractures. There were wild species and domestic species mixed together. The isotope analysis of their feathers, which tells us what the birds ate, showed a diet of wild food, not a standardized hatchery diet. The conclusion was clear. These were not farmed birds, they were hunted. This changes the picture of Egyptian religion entirely. It wasn't a calm, organized factory. It was a massive, chaotic, nationwide hunting operation. Imagine the infrastructure required. Thousands of fowlers moving through the marshes of the Nile, trapping every bird they could find. The temples weren't just breeding centers, they were collection points for a wild harvest. The priests relied on the wildness of the bird to make the offering potent. A farmed bird was just livestock. A wild bird was a piece of chaos, captured and ordered by human hands, but the scans revealed something else. A hint of a scam. Not every mummy contained a whole bird. Some contained just a few feathers. Some contained a snake. Some were empty, stuffed with mud and shaped to look like a bird. It seems that even in the sacred economy of ancient Egypt, supply chain issues existed. When the hunters couldn't find enough falcons, the priests improvised. They sold the idea of a bird. This discovery strips away the mystical veneer and shows us the logistics of belief. It emphasizes adaptability. The Egyptians were practical. They wanted to honor the gods, but they had to work with what the river gave them. And when the river was empty, they sold a bundle of feathers and faith, hoping the gods and the customers wouldn't notice the difference. We have exposed the logistics of the Egyptian priesthood and the riches of the frozen north. But the most powerful discoveries are often the quietest. In our final chapter, we uncover a grave that proves friendship is older than civilization itself. We will meet a wooden queen who cheated time against all odds. And finally, we will stand in the center of a cosmic scar the size of a country to see how ancient humans made sense of the apocalypse. The most emotional part of this journey is still to come. The conclusion is waiting. Click here for the finale.